Hey friends, let's talk about creativity in paid advertising. As I'm sure you know, there is so much market saturation. It seems like every other business pretty much sells the same exact product, same exact proposition. A lot of advertising copy and advertising in general starts to mesh into one, and it's harder and harder for companies to differentiate and stand out from its competition. And I personally feel like creativity is an element that isn't talked about in advertising too much. And today I'm gonna provide some insights in how we can utilize creativity within paid advertising, but in advertising in general or in marketing in general. Let's go. So before we crack on, we need to have an agreement. Why do we actually need creativity in advertising? There's no point in me telling you to be creative in advertising if you don't feel there's a need for it, right? So my primary reason for having creativity in advertising, it's pretty much the same exact concept as why a company should have a brand. So the reason why you want to have a brand as a company is to differentiate yourself as a company, to be able to target your specific niche or your ideal customer persona and communicate effectively with those groups of people. And more importantly is you want to be able to dominate within your proposition or sector, right? Because if you're trying to sell to everyone, you're not selling to anyone. So in summary, because of market saturation, it's more and more important for brands and businesses to be able to hone in on the fact of what makes them different. And the way to be different is to be creative. And that's why creativity is needed in paid advertising specifically. So let's go through these points fairly quickly. First one being use storytelling. And I feel like me working in digital growth marketing, I don't see a lot of ads using that exact concept when it's such a human factor to add in your element of advertising to people, right? So why not use storytelling in your advertising? You know, create a character that somehow gets to a point that transforms them when they engage with your product or when they use your product or service. There's a really great perspective from a mentor that I was watching at a property investing conference a couple of weeks ago, where he said that what you're really selling is not a product or a service. Within that, what you're really selling is a transformation for that person. So the best way to do that is for them to be able to relate to the character that you have within your story. And the reason why that's important, that call and response or that interactivity, is it's harder and harder to engage people. So any kind of angle you can utilize to get someone to physically or even mentally engage with your ad is a great way to hook them in your business. The second point is using gamification. And that could translate to many different elements, but for the sake of simplicity, and the example we're going to use is, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those programmatic display ads that's shown when you ever go to a website and you drag your cursor around it. And for some reason, it either expands, the cursor element changes, or the visual cursor changes, or there's a sound that plays, or the actual ad itself changes as you scroll or you hover over your mouse over it. And I think for me, that interactive element engages me as an end user. So same exact concept when you're using carousel ads, you know, within paid social, for example. So you might have 3 images that need to be clicked on so you can actually understand the full concept of the ad or that particular post. So there's an element of interactivity and call and response from the other person. And the reason why that's important, that call and response or that interactivity, is it's harder and harder to engage people. Any kind of angle you can utilize to get someone to physically or even mentally engage with your ad is a great way to hook them in your business. Third point to use creativity is actually, rather than using your content and forcing yourself to create content as a business, why not just ask your users who already use your product, who might already rave about your product, to create content for you? So another way of doing this, or another term for this, is user-generated content, or UGC. So whether that's an influencer or a cohort of audiences that use your product, you know, you can just simply ask them, listen, we would offer you 2-month free subscription if you can create us your review of our product or you using our product. And then there's kind of 2 benefits to that. One is, well, it's legit. You know, your advertising becomes legit because it's an actual user already using your product, enjoys your product. And the second win is that it's an element of social proof. People only buy products for 3 fundamental reasons. They like the product, they need the product, or they trust the product or the company that sells it. Fourth point is very related to the first point of storytelling, which is being able to use more emotion or have your advertising have more of an emotional response for that end user. And a great company that does this every year is Marks & Spencer's. So every year around December time, they have a big marketing campaign for that season where it's always, like a lot of people who know it know what to expect, right? There's going to be a storyline to it. There's going to be an emphasis of Christmas. Obviously, there's always a custom-made track or cover of an old track by a new artist. But fundamentally, there's always an emotion that arises when you watch that marketing campaign. And it's a great play on the seasonality aspect of when they have that particular advertising campaign, but at the same time, there's an emotional response. And when there's an emotional response, there is a seed that is planted within that user. So whenever Christmas time comes around, for some reason they attach the idea to Marks & Spencer's, for example. That's one way to have a stronger advertising campaign. It's playing on people's emotions, whether that's humor, that's sadness, that's a sense of empathy. There's a human connection to the core, if that makes sense. Another creative aspect you can deploy for your advertising campaigns is making hyper-personalized campaigns. Now, word of warning, this can be a bit of a hit and miss. You don't want to hyper-personalize to targeting someone's exact postcode and then mentioning that, do you live in this postcode? Are you age 30 to 44? That's a bit too extreme. What I mean by hyper-personalization, it's really identifying the language, images, and the visual aspects that your ideal customer persona will respond to, right? So let's say a great company that does this is Jasper.ai. So whenever they have ads, especially when I see them on Facebook, they know for some reason I'm a marketer because they're targeting marketers within Facebook ads within their targeting. But I feel like because it's speaking to me directly, there's less friction in me trusting the ad. Even though I don't see who the brand is initially, I'll just see the ad copy. Well, if it relates to me, I'll be more engaged, and it's very likely that I'll probably click on the ad because it's speaking to me. So what hyper-personalization really does is speak to your audience to the core. And again, when we're marketing, that's a secret, right? You don't want to speak to everyone. You want to speak to a specific person. You want your adverts to speak to your ideal customer persona. So when I'm shooting this video, I'm speaking to you. I don't know where you're watching this from. I don't know if you're a digital marketer, someone interested in marketing. You could be an entrepreneur. You could be doing something else, but hopefully I'm solving your problem and hopefully you're entertained at the same time. So penultimate point, using your organic content, whether that's an organic social post that's doing quite well, being able to boost that. Another aspect is maybe you have a blog that for some reason after all these years is doing quite well. It's bringing in a lot of traffic or a lot of leads. Try to maybe boost that with advertising. Another aspect could be you might have a webinar that's really quite strong, that you have campaigns that you frequently do as a company. Why not shoot that webinar and then use YouTube ads to boost the ad? Because if it's a webinar that's insightful, you're bringing in leads, you might actually get inbound leads through that advertising campaign, even though that wasn't the plan. In short, use organic content that you already have for your paid advertising campaigns. Because especially if you know that it works already because you have the data right in front of you, why not find a path of least resistance and use what's already working and boost it, or use advertising as a way to increase its momentum. And the final point I want to make with how to be creative in paid advertising is emphasize your brand's DNA within your messaging. It's helping your customers not just buy into the product, they're starting to buy into you. Ideally, not just to become customers, but you want them to become advocates. You know, so in a way, once they turn into advocates, that's pre-advertising for you because they'll be the ones shouting about your brand or your product. Using your brand DNA for your paid advertising campaigns, or at least adding your brand DNA within the content that you use for paid advertising. So what are some interesting ways that you've used creativity in paid advertising? Are there any pitfalls or success stories that you want to share? Leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thank you for watching the video. Till next time, peace and love out.